always good to start with a story here. So I'm sitting in this very big group of staff and teachers, and we're all going to talk about character development for the students. And I think this is such a wonderful thing. You know, all these people are talking about making students, giving them a greater sense of humility and intellectual curiosity, and all this wonderful stuff. So I'm all about it. And we have a fireside chat, and we have a group of people going up, and they're all administrators. And administrators and faculty are already kind of like hyenas and lions to begin with. We sort of eye each other, you know, askance. And so I'm listening to, in my mind, a lot of people talking about what we should do to students who probably haven't met one face-to-face in months. But I'm trying my best to sit there and not jump out of my chair. And so they finish up, and my wife is also at this event. She works at this event. And she comes up to me very, you know, she goes, "So how's it going?" And I said, "Oh, it's fine. I'm just sitting there listening." She goes, I'm sitting right behind you." And I was like, she goes, "And you were twisting, and I could see your jaw working, and you just wanted to jump up there and tell them all to shut up and listen to you." And I was like, oh, man, right? So here I am at this humility thing, not being very humble, because I'm triggered. Something's got me triggered. Something's got me out of my skill set now. And so now I'm getting all worked up. And so this is where I want to start. We're trying to live this difficult principle of affirming the inherent value and dignity of every human being that we meet, and maybe many that we never meet. And it's so beautiful and demanding of a principle. It's so expansive, it's so inclusive, it's so radical, and it's so hard to do. It's easy to do in theory, but it's so hard to do in practice, especially if somebody interrupts us or is dismissive to us or is rude or sparks our insecurity. In those moments, it looks like the inherent dignity and worth of the person just evaporates. And we kind of flatten those people out. We just see them as nothing but a problem or a threat or an obstacle. And if we're honest, the struggle to live this principle, it usually starts with ourselves as well. We often don't want to see our own inherent dignity. Sometimes it's too hard to claim. It's one of the most difficult things for us to do. So what I'm going to talk about, this is one of 3 sermons I'm going to do, where we talk a little bit about shadow work and humility and the ability to use these ideas and techniques to live with less fear and anger. That's like the bottom line. Can I just not get triggered so quickly? So what do we mean by shadow? This is something that psychiatrist Carl Jung came up with about 100 years ago. And what it is it's all those pieces of ourselves that we push out of awareness when we're children. We're taught just not to be like that. There's nothing really bad in the shadow. It's just socially risky. What am I afraid to show to someone? Other things pop up too. We might not be allowed to cry. We might not be allowed to be selfish. We might not be allowed to be messy. And none of these things are necessarily bad, but they're risky, and they don't fit with the people that we grew up with. So again, the best is with an example. I'm sure there are so many people in this room that are really helpful people. You're just helpful by nature. That's part of the reason why you're part of this organization in the first place. So if somebody comes to you and says, "I really need a favor, or I really need you to help me do this," you're like, yeah, sure. You're right in there. And you're also doing a lot of favors you wish you would have said no to, right? You're starting to get resentful. You know, now it's coming up. It's like, oh, why did I say yes to this? I don't have time, right? Because helpful people put their boundaries in shadow. They put their ability to say no into shadow. They were praised as being helpful. Their parents thought it was great they were helpful. Their grandparents thought it was great that they were helpful. So now to say no strikes fear. If I say no, like maybe something bad will happen to my friend. If I say no, maybe they won't love me so much, which is actually probably the real fear. If I'm not helpful, I'm inherently not valuable. So I have to add value added, with all of my assistance to you. The helpful people in the room, ask yourselves this: how hard is it for you yourself to ask for help? You're drowning in overcommitment, but you don't want to ask for help because you don't want to be a burden. Again, the shadow, the fear. I'm not worth helping, right? My inherent worth and dignity is now being obscured because my fear is being sparked and my shadow is coming out and saying, no, don't ask for help. You don't want to be a burden. All right, so helpful people put their ability to say no into shadow, and they put their ability to ask for help. So the shadow doesn't really disappear. It's this piece of ourselves. It's also very important to realize the shadow is a child's defense mechanism. It's what helps keep a child safe. I'm not like that. They're like that. I'm helpful. I'm not selfish, right? I'm not messy. That one's messy. But it's an adult's obstacle. It gets in the way of us being more effective at being ourselves. And it accuses others of what we ourselves are afraid to admit to. What I won't admit to in myself is what I'm most likely to accuse you of. So certain people set us off. They give us, they provoke outsized reactions, like a current lingers, a comment lingers in our mind too long. A criticism feels like an attack. Our body tightens, our voice sharpens, we're activated, right? You can tell you're activated because your whole body, you're on the defense, your body tightens up. You put distance between the person who's setting you off or the situation. So this is where discernment becomes crucial, because sometimes there is a legitimate environmental threat and I need to respond to it. But the problem is it a legitimate environmental threat, or is it really what's going on inside of me from my past, from my childhood? So let's look at 3 emotions that we could sort of do some discernment on and become more aware of the trigger. I need to know, when am I being set off? So we'll look at anger, fear, and guilt, right? So real anger is when we can see that a boundary has been crossed. I'm angry because you did this to me. I'm angry because they hurt those people, or they are breaking this thing that's very important to me. I can see it very clearly. But if I'm sitting in a restaurant and someone's just really talking really loud on the next table, just being themselves, and I'm getting really angry, it's like, okay, this person's not doing anything to me. I might see one of my rivals on campus walking down the sidewalk. Instead, I'm like, oh, God, I hate that guy. Look at him. It's just, I can't stand that guy. And he's not even thinking about me. He doesn't, so we wind ourselves up. I wind myself up when I get activated. And so I have to ask myself, am I just taking this person personally? Or is this person really crossing a line? And if I'm taking them personally, then it's something about me. Now I go, okay, there's no transgression. Aggression without transgression, that's a shadow moment, right? So now I have a way to go, okay, this person's not trying to get to me. They're just being who they are. They're having a bad day too, whatever it is. So real fear, right, is protective, and it has an object. Like somebody cuts me off or is driving really recklessly on the freeway. I'm afraid that person is going to cause an accident, right? I can see it very clearly. I'm afraid that big dog running at me is gonna bite me. So fear has an object. But shadow-activated fear is more like anxiety. We just don't know what's gonna happen next. And that's the problem. I can run from the dog coming at me. I can get out of the way of the reckless driver, or I can go intervene in a fight or something, but I can't fight or flight uncertainty. And that's where we get very caught up in what if. It's like, what exactly am I afraid of, right? And again, this is said with full understanding that a lot of folks deal with very clinically difficult levels of anxiety, right? But there are so many other times where we just get set off by something, and we don't really know what's at risk, and it just gets us all worked up. Guilt even has 2 different sides to it. Like real, honest, healthy guilt means I made an agreement with you and then I broke it. And now I feel bad, as I should, which is an impetus for me to get back into integrity with myself and with you. If I was still asleep right now and I woke up, right, I'd have a lot of reason to feel guilty. I just let down a lot of people. But now, let's say that Kathy's like, can you do this extra sermon? And I just can't do it. And I'm like, oh, I can't. I got another thing I got to do that day. Now, is it right for me to feel guilty because I never made the agreement and I never broke the agreement? Right? So how many of us feel guilt about stuff we never made an agreement about? Right? We never made the agreement, we never broke the agreement, but we're beating ourselves up about it. So if I were to say, oh, I wish I could do that, but I can't, now it'd be appropriate for me to say, I feel kind of bad, I feel kind of disappointed, I wish I could do it. It's disappointing not to be able to do it because I like doing this. I might feel some concern. I'm like, I hope Kathy and I hope everybody gets another person. But to indict myself with guilt when I never made an agreement is ridiculous. Right? And so catching that false guilt, I never made an agreement about that. I don't have to feel bad about that. All right, so I want you to think about those three emotions, fear, anger, and guilt, and what's really causing it. Right? Is the guilt from a broken agreement? Is the fear from something in the environment? Is the anger from a clear transgression that I can see? And if it's not, then it might be saying, okay, maybe this is something that has to do with me. Maybe this is some of my childhood defense mechanisms trying to protect me when they don't need to. That's the real trick. So, how does it disrupt our vision? Let's see. Oh, I lost my page here. There we go. When we mistake shadow activation for moral clarity, we get very reactive. We start to withdraw. We start to defend. In that state, it's nearly impossible to see the inherent worth of ourselves or the other person. If someone's activating me, I cannot see them as a full human being because I can't see them clearly through the chaos and the emotion of my activation. So we flatten the other person into a symbol. They become the ignorant one or the arrogant one or the disrespectful one or the unreasonable one. We give ourselves a quick narrative and go, this person is a threat to me, so boom, that's what they are. And it's not that their inherent worth has disappeared. It's that, again, our shadow has obscured our ability to see it in this moment. Right? We might have this, and we do, with people we love, our kids, our parents, our friends. There are moments that they're driving us insane, and we can't quite get past it, and we can't quite see them. What we fail to see might be that their confidence has activated some of our own insecurity, or that their criticisms activated some kind of inadequacy that we feel about ourselves. Some disagreement might activate rejection. The shadow really is a kind of heartbroken child that we are all carrying inside of us. It's that really heartbroken 10-year-old or 6-year-old kid. And so when they're activated, the real move is to talk to that child like you're their parent. When we're afraid, I'm always telling my students this, never beat yourself up when you're afraid. Never beat yourself up when you're afraid. Talk to yourself like you're a child, because that's what's afraid. The child inside you is afraid right now, so talk to it, and then it will calm down, and you can think more clearly. So there's a kind of pause that we need to work out. So I'll go into this. The first moment of shadow work is really easy to talk about, but it's hard to do. And that's when you feel the surge of emotion, right? One of the things to notice is, does the emotion feel disproportionate to the situation? Am I too angry? Am I too guilty, right? Am I too afraid? What's really happening here? But it's very important to just catch yourself and go, okay, I can feel it in my body. I'm activated. My body feels really tight. Or I really want to win right now. I want to win this argument. I want to get this right now. Or I'm feeling dismissed. When I got upset at this gathering that we were talking about, humility, is because I didn't feel recognized. I was looking at a bunch of deans up there talking about stuff that I didn't think they knew what to talk about, and I should be up there. And so my pride, I'm not being recognized, that was so worked up. But what was really happening is the shadow of feeling insignificant was being activated. As soon as I could say, okay, this is what you're really afraid of. You're really afraid that you don't matter. Now, as soon as I saw that, I'd say about half of my irritation fell away. Right? I mean, it didn't kill it all because there was still a bunch of people talking about stuff they really didn't know about. But it wasn't getting to me anymore, so that was okay, right? So again, if I can catch myself when these emotions hit, if I can sense of what's happening, I'm feeling triggered right now, then comes some kind of inquiry. Okay, is there real harm occurring? Is someone doing something to me on purpose? Is there a boundary I really need to protect? Or is this just someone challenging my identity in some way? Is this someone challenging my pride in some way? What does this remind me of from the past? When did I feel like this when I was 10? Whenever I have a lot of patience with people, but as soon as a computer or any piece of technology goes sideways on me, I turn into an 8th grader again who couldn't figure out algebra. And it makes me feel overwhelmed and vulnerable. Again, this is a 60-year-old man, right? But every once in a while, I'm still 13 going, I don't know how to do this, and I just want to throw it out the window. So, but I got to talk that down, right? Or ask my son, how do you work this thing? So we look, when we start to question, and we're not trying to gaslight ourselves, we're not trying to second guess ourselves, we're trying to discern, is this an environmental threat, or is this coming from inside me? And if it is, then I need to talk back to that shadow. I'm a creative person. Creative people are pretty sensitive, so I have kind of a victim shadow. I need to take criticism better, right? Which is going to be important because I have a post-tenure review in a couple of days. So we'll see how well that works, right? If I'm in the fetal position instead of the next pulpit, then you'll know it didn't go well. But I catch myself. I'm like, okay, you're falling into your victim. No one's attacking you. It's just creative feedback, right? Constructive feedback. Same thing with us helpful people. I'm going to, can you help me? Oh my God, I'm going to fall into my drudge and say yes. Or I can say, you know what, I would love to help you. Ask me to help you another time, but this time I really can't do it, right? And there's a freeingness. When you've done it right because you're like, okay, I just feel better now, right? So we can also call the shadow out and talk to it. When you think about it, our emotions talk to us all day long. That could have went better. I don't feel really good. That person was rude to me. I wish I could, especially when I talk to younger people, it's always like, I wish I would have done better. I wish I would have done better. I wish I would have done better. That's all they say to themselves, right? But we never speak back to our emotions. We need to speak back to our anger. Like, ask it, like, what do you want from me? I ask my anger that a lot. What do you want from me? What do you want me to do? And sometimes the question is, well, I don't want you to feel embarrassed. And I'm like, dude, I've been embarrassed a billion times. Like, we're old friends at this point. I can do embarrassment. You don't have to protect me, right? We need to speak back to our emotions. Like, you're good. I really don't need you to do it. Same thing with fear. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to mess up. It'll be fine, right? So call it out. Call your shadow out, speak to your shadow, speak to your emotions. Have a dialogue with it, right? If I have a dialogue with my feelings, now I realize that I have feelings, but that I am not my feelings. I have thoughts and feelings, but I get to choose which ones I'm going to go with. So catching your shadow and seeing it, like when I saw how unhumble I was being on a thing about humility, that was humbling. When people realize I'm falling into my know-it-all again, because I associate being wrong with feeling ashamed. And then they can go, all right, I can admit I'm wrong now, right? Or I'm falling into my tyrant again because I'm trying to over-organize everybody else, and I'm micromanaging everyone, right? And I'm burning myself out. We catch ourselves, we can talk ourselves down. We can also see our own shadow most clearly in our rivals. Like people say, what's in my shadow? I'm like, who's somebody you don't like? 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 like they might be really arrogant or greedy, but that's what makes it so easy for me to stick my arrogance or greed onto them. So I work at a university, and you don't really meet a lot of humble people, at least among the faculty. And so there's a lot of, there's a lot of oxygen gets burned up in the rooms. And so it's very easy for me to look at someone and go, my gosh, that guy's so arrogant. My gosh, that guy's so arrogant. And to deny my own arrogance. And to also start to get really aggressive against this colleague. He's so arrogant. He's not that arrogant. Yes, he is. Right? Because I've made him more arrogant. I've stuck my arrogance on top of his. So now I can't even see him clearly. So now what I need to do is go, you know what? My colleague is arrogant, and sometimes so am I. That person's greedy, sometimes so am I. That person's pretentious, sometimes so am I. So there's this moment, you see your shadow, there's a moment of reckoning, there's a moment of honesty, and there's a moment of humility. And it's a continuing effort to admit these things to ourselves over. It's not a one and done. Sometimes you really have a handle on a shadow and it just pops up again. You're like, I'm never going to beat this thing. And that's exactly right. It's always going to be an active process. And it's a continued effort. So it's always a continued effort to admit and see my own arrogance and how easy it is to stick it on other people. So what we're trying to do is kind of live our living principles from the inside out. How can I really see my own inherent worth and dignity as most clearly? That way I can see everybody else's more clearly, right? The more divided I am against myself, the more divided I'm going to be with other people. So clear seeing doesn't mean a kind of passive acceptance. I'm just going to accept whatever happens to me, by whoever. It's kind of a proportionate response. And it comes up when we're in those moments under duress. Like, again, am I trying to defend myself or is someone just trying to express themselves? What is it? What's the response I need to have? I don't want to react. React is when I become unskillful. Probably my number one go-to response when I know I'm activated is to sit down and shut up. Because I know if I'm unskillful, it's a one-way ticket to regret, and I've had so many moments where I'm like, I'm just not going to say anything for the next 20 minutes. And 20 minutes later, I'm like, wow, that was such a good idea. It never stops being a good idea. So here's what I would invite you to do this week, a small discipline. When you feel that surge of anger or fear or guilt, take a pause. Take a breath, and ask yourself, is this a real environmental threat that I'm responding to, or is this a piece of my shadow from my childhood that's becoming activated? And notice the difference in your body when you start to realize that maybe this is actually something that's going on inside me. Before we can embody our principle in these difficult relationships, we must understand that there are interior forces that distort our ability to see others for all of their inherent worth and dignity. And we've got to learn to recognize when our shadow is speaking to us. So in the next coming sermons, I'll talk a little bit more about this. But for now, the invitation is pretty simple and brave. Pay attention to your activation. Take a moment when the emotions really hit and go, okay, is this really from the environment or is this coming into me? Because when we understand our shadow, we become freer, not only to regulate ourselves, but we can see other people more fully. And that's really where living the first principle begins. So blessings be.